So today we're speaking with Previs artist Luis Andrade. He's worked on feature films like Passengers, The Mummy, X-Men, Jumanji. We're talking about how he got into the industry, what it takes to be a Previs artist, and how Luis uses Unreal Engine for Previs, how he recreated action scenes from some of his favourite movies like Avengers and Batman. Talking of Avengers, if you're a fan of Spider-Man and animation, check out our last video where we speak with VFX artist Miran Dilbrovic about how he made this awesome looping Spider-Man animation. But yeah, hope you enjoy the video. Let's get into the video with Luis. Hey Luis,
Jamie.
Yeah, man.
Good, man. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. So it's morning there for you, isn't it, Luis? Is it like 10 o'clock?
Yeah, it's 10 a.m. Yeah, Pacific. It's not too late for you over there?
This is 6 o'clock in the evening, so...
Oh, 6 o'clock. Okay, so that's pretty good.
It's cool, man. It's good. What have you got planned today?
Because just work on my own stuff, you know. I might be starting a project soon, so I'm just waiting for that, you know. Hopefully it's still in the works, and hopefully they'll call me, you know, to start. I'm trying to, advance as much as I can in this project that I have for the project, you know.
Wicked, man.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Luis,
Yeah.
just to start off, how did you get into Previs? How did you discover it? And how did you get into the industry?
Yeah, well, I basically, I've always liked art. So when I went to college, I picked some like 3D modeling classes, some After Effects, graphic design, and stagecraft, some television production and all that stuff. But obviously, you know, the class that interested me the most was the 3D modeling and animation class. I think around the same time, I watched the first Transformers movie. And, you know, the whole time I was just like, my jaw was like on my lap. And I was thinking, you know, well, maybe I want to do something like that, you know, maybe I want to do visual effects. And because I knew that Maya was like the main software that is visual effects houses were using, right? It was like the go-to software. So I began learning all that Maya. I created this little reel, like this little short, like commercial kind of stuff of racing cars going, you know. And I packaged that, and then I sent it to a bunch of studios, you know, like Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal Studio. But, you know, I never heard back from them. So I was thinking, you know, maybe I should do some networking, you know, try to meet someone who's already in the industry. Maybe they can guide me where I should do and, you know, give me some tips on what area I should focus on in the visual effects, realm or something, right? I applied for a production assistant at a student film here in California at the American Film Institute. And I met a guy there, the director who was doing his short. But before that, he was a technical director for ILM and Weta. And I think he worked on the Star Wars prequels and Avatar. And I think he did Ice Age. You know, he did some animation in Ice Age. I was thinking, you know what, maybe I should become friends with this guy, you know? So I showed him my little short that I did, and he's like, your rendering is not that great, but it looks like you have some good camera work and some good animation. Why don't you go and look into this layout area? I'm like, layout? The hell is layout? So I began, you know, looking up, you know, what this layout business was. And from there, I came across this other area called Previs. So, because they're kind of similar in some way. I began looking into Previs, and then I discovered, you know, right off the bat that, you know, this is what I really wanted to do. You know, I wanted to animate characters, you know, block cameras and create, you know, cool action sequences, you know, like the sequences that I previously saw on Transformers, you know. That's what I wanted to do. So, you know, I was aiming for that now, you know, that was my target. So I began practicing more and more animation and try to recreate some of action sequences from some movies that I liked. My next goal was maybe if I, you know, contact directly, you know, the supervisors, the previous supervisors, you know. So I looked through some of the supervisors. I looked at their reels and I contacted them. I sent them an email with a link to my work, and some of them replied, and one of them is like, yeah, Luis, you have some good stuff here. You got some good camera work, some good animation. Let me forward your your information to the head of the department, and let's see what comes out from it. And I was like, sure, cool, man, thanks. And then after about a month or so, the supervisor called me. He's like, hey, Luisa, we got a couple of shows that we need to finish. Would you like to come and help us, work as a previous guy, and I'm like, yeah, why not, man? No, I was really excited. So I went there, and I think I did some previews for a couple of months. I think my first job was The Finest Hours. But then after that, Halen called me, because I also sent my stuff to those guys. And they're like, hey, you want to come and, do some pitches with us? And I'm like, sure. And I think that was when I did Cloverfield, the sequel. Then after that, I think APC called me back again. And so I went back there. And I think I've stayed there ever since, because after a show usually comes to an end, there's another one, ramping up. So it's a constant flow of work. Yeah.
Awesome, man. When you mentioned, when you said you started recreating some action sequences from some sequences in movies, yeah. I know that this one's not your favorite one. And this is
Batman.
And you know what? This is how I came across you on YouTube. So about 3 years ago, I just typed in Previs on YouTube, and your stuff came up. And
really?
Yeah. Oh, wow. It was like one of the top three or four results. So I click on it. There's a video of the Dark Knight video that we spoke about, and I loved it, man. I know that it's not one of your favorite pieces. It is super low poly, it is super basic textures, but altogether as a action sequence and storytelling and the camera work, it just shows how powerful Previs can be at its simplest form in terms of what it needs to do. And I think that's a great example of camera work, timing, maybe not necessarily visually as high-end as what it is now, but at its core, I think that just shows how powerful Previs is, what it can bring to visualize an action sequence. I loved it. It's a big sequence as well. That's 10 minutes. And was that an actual replication, or was it your own take on a sequence?
So I guess the main idea why I wanted to sort of create this thing is so when I watched the movies, the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, I liked them and all, but there was always something about the action sequences that it was kind of hard for me to follow. They were kind of confusing to me. So out of that, sort of frustration, I guess, I wanted to sort of do my own take on the action. So what I did was I tried to choose, what sequence I wanted to work on, and I chose this one, which was I think this is Dark Knight Rises. So I try to somewhat recreate the whole action, but not, exactly the same. So I, open the Maya scene, try to animate all these characters, and then when I was happy with, the timing of the action and all that, then I started, coming up with angles, cool camera shots, and all that, and. The Fast and Furious movies, I've always liked the action that they have. It's very fast-moving cameras, low to the ground with wide lenses, vehicles zoom past the camera real close. It's kind of like on your face kind of action. So that I've always liked that kind of style, and I try to implement some of that into this one. And then now that I'm seeing it, I've sort of I think I'm making the same mistakes that I was complaining about. The cameras, because the camera's all over the place, and I'm breaking the 180-degree rule, and it's a bit confusing. But at the time, I thought I was doing a great job.
Yeah, man. I mean, it just shows it's so low poly, so simple stuff. But I just love it at its simplest form. I think it's great. It's a lot different to what you create now, because your recent work is super high-end stuff, Unreal Engine, real-time stuff, I think as technology advances, then that's just naturally how Previs has evolved over the years. How are these characters rigged up? Are they just simple sort of bones, or are they
actually, I wanted to talk about it because Yeah, I mean, I think the rig, I created the rig like from scratch. I think I watched some very old Maya rigging tutorial where they taught you how to rig some bipeds. So the rigs are very like simple. So it's just, I think it's just, they have, IK, FK controls and all that. Now that we're talking about these characters, I got this trick from like watching one of the videos from the third floor. Back in the day, I think Chris Edwards was talking about how in order to save some time and not spend a lot of time in the rigging process, they will have their artists sort of have the characters chopped into little pieces. Kind of like you will have like the upper arm as a separate piece, the lower arm as a different piece, and the hands, the fingers, upper torso, lower. They will all be like different. All these sections will be separate, so that when it comes to rigging, it'll be faster. You don't spend time, skinning weights into all that stuff. Plus I think if you do like I think rigid or rigged binding, I think it's, it saves some resources from the computers. It's faster. And that's what I try to implement here. As you can see, these characters, their arms, they look like they're separate objects. They don't, just bend or deform,
I mean, I've even worked on recent projects, and that's just still how many, previous projects operate, separate meshes, and just to be as efficient and quick as possible, because
exactly. Yeah.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
And I think, I guess it depends on the project. For some directors or, or studios, they care about, the storytelling if the cameras are working, but not so much about the, the graphics. So they'll be completely happy with this, but some other ones, they want to have a higher end, for example, for like pitches. If if the director wants to sell his idea to the studio to raise money or something, then they'll try to, raise the quality, of the Previs, then they'll do some Unreal stuff or something that looks a bit more finished.
I love the good old photo projection faces on the.
That's me, by the way.
Oh, what, Batman?
Yeah, well, for not this guy, but the only policeman.
Okay.
I decided to take my own picture and just project it into the face of this policeman for some reason. I don't know.
I love that.
Yeah, that's all me. Yeah.
So there's a little secret insight into this Previs that you've used. Only maybe you and other people would know that it's your own face.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, let me see if I have anything interesting to say about this. Well, the effects, I think, as you saw, like when Batman was shooting. I think at the time I didn't know how to use like real footage from like explosions, sparks, or like debris and all that stuff. So what I was doing was I created a sphere, and I just animated the scale of the sphere and also its opacity, so that it looked like it's a blast of energy or an explosion or something like that. So I think that also back in the day, that's how they used to do explosions and all that stuff.
And then now going from that level, I see that you replicated something that you've done recently and done it in Unreal Engine. I think it was the shot of, there was like a big crowd and there's a guy standing on the top of like...
Oh, yeah. The inspiration for that one, the sequel, not the first one, the sequel. I think instead of that guy that I have there, it's supposed to be Xerxes standing on top of his castle or whatever in front of the crowd. I think they're about to go into war against Spartans or something like that, against the Greeks. So yeah, that was kind of like the look, the inspiration, and that's what I was aiming for. But before we go into that, I just wanted to show real quick, the other types of styles of Previs. It's a bit more recent work, and obviously I try to use some tricks that I've learned in the job. So yeah, this one, it's another exercise, and the reason why I do these exercises of recreating some of the sequences that I liked about in movies is just to practice animation, obviously, but how they block their scenes, how the composition is done, how they edit all the shots together for a full sequence. And I think this is a very good practice, to learn all that, because you can only learn so much just by watching the movie, but if you have to actually recreate the whole thing, then you're paying more attention to every single detail that they did. So yeah, like I was saying, the textures are a bit more detailed, and here I'm actually skinning the characters. They're not chopped into pieces like in the Batman sequence. A bit more high detail, and here I'm able to use the Viewport 2.0 rendering capabilities of the shadows, ambient occlusion, and the anti-aliasing, so that the edges of the objects are no longer pixelated and stuff like that. Here I have the master scene file where I created this. Fortunately, I was able to find it. So this is basically your average, I guess, Previs scene file. You have everything here. This is Viewport 2.0, and it's very. The background buildings are just pretty much just cubes, with a little bit of some detail here and there. And for the panorama, I did sort of like it's just a basic cylinder, and it's scale, and I think I extruded the bottom part, because in some of these shots the camera's high on top, and if you're looking down, I didn't want to lose that that sense that it's just a 2D plane, but it's like somewhat of a 3D background environment. So it looks weird, but you have the background, the buildings, occluding some of this stuff.
Yeah, man, it works. These are many of the previous tricks. There's so many like cheats and tricks and stuff to get stuff to work.
Oh yeah. So this is a basic scene. I think I have like 6 lights. So one is facing up, down, left, right, and I have a main key light over here, which is what's producing the shadows and all that stuff. And this key light is the one that I move or offset the most for every single shot, because I want to sort of match the lighting direction that they used in the real film, right? And I think I just had to model these 2 buildings, try to replicate what they used in the real film. So, this is pretty much just basic stuff. And here I just model this small little portion, and I just duplicate it horizontally and vertically and stuff. The way I do this is I import like the sequence into an image plane here inside of Maya in a separate window. And then I'll just start, animating all these characters to try to match the film. I don't worry about, importing cameras or anything yet. I just try to block out the whole sequence. And I think this sequence is about 10 minutes or something. So we'll block out all these characters. You try to see where they should land according to the reference. And once I'm happy with that, then I'll start blocking cameras, try to replicate the composition that they did here, and maybe polish the animation a little bit with animation layers. And once I'm happy with that, then I'll just start dividing all these shots into different Maya files in case I need to modify something in the background. Then it won't affect the other shots. And and then just to shoot this out, I play blast it. Sometimes I create like ZDEP render layers, so that I could be able to do some depth of field inside of After Effects. Sometimes I do like other glow layers. I will just render the explosions or the sparks in different layers. So if I need to color correct them later or add some glow to them, then I can do that in After Effects. And once I'm happy with that, then I'll just layer all those images in After Effects and just render that. And that's basically the workflow I did for this one. But the other one that I was my most recent work, like you were saying, I rendered this in when I was practicing some Redshift stuff. And this is sort of like my process. I will model all these clothes and then import them into this master file that I have, where it's just a biped, and the biped has a bunch of blend shapes to it, deforming his body, like if it's skinny or strong, or morph it into a female and all that. And then I will wrap deform these objects into the model. And so if I'm modifying these blend shapes, then the clothing will follow it.
Is that what kind of setup's that, Lewis? Is that like one person rig that you can just generate different characters from?
No, I think it's just a standalone program. It's called Make Human. You go there and you get a bunch of attributes like here. If you want to create your character, it's skinny, strong, or something like that. And then once you're happy with that, you'll export it. I think it exports a rig as well, like just joints. And then you can use it in any program you want. Oh, the other one is DAZ. DAZ 3D, where you can also create, characters like this, and you'll have blend shapes, to make it the way you want it. So I try to do something like that, like similar process, but in Maya. So we'll export all these DAZ different models in DAZ. Like some of them are strong, shorter, or skinny, and I will import them into this. Then I will create blend shapes from them into this low-risk character, and that's what I'm using here. I have this low-risk character that's linked to all these blend shapes. So when I import all these clothes, they'll deform as the character does. So I do this, then I'll check if all the blend shapes, the face blend shapes are working and all that. Then what I do is import. I use the Adobe Mixamo library for mocap. So I will have a separate separate Maya file where I will import all these mocap and have already a rig set up that works with this mocap. So we'll just apply it and try to modify it and some of the stuff, and then just bake it into the controls, into the rig, and then I will just export this rig. This animation with this other script called Studio Library. You probably know it.
We use Mixamo and Studio Library a lot.
This one's amazing, right? The fact that you can have little thumbnails showing you what's how the animation looks and all that stuff. It's just great. And then so I will do that, and then I will just paste that animation into my characters here, so that they have the mocap now there, and then I'll start creating the environment. Try to block out, the hills and all that stuff. Try to see where the camera should be placed. Try to block the characters here. What looks good. Well, then I'll go and I have other libraries where it's just sky domes. So I'll pick whatever I like, and then just import them in here, and just try to build this this whole thing from pre-made stuff. Just all these textures. And then I have other libraries just with foliage and stuff. So I will just pick whatever I want, and I'll start painting it with these other scripts called SP Paint 3D, which is basically you're just painting with geometry. So I guess it's like the foliage tool in Unreal. Oh, and this is another one. This is another cool little software. It's called Materialize.
Materialize is so cool, man. So powerful.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially, for people who don't have access to the Quixel Megascans library, with already pre-made materials, this is great. You can just extract any normal map or height map from any JPEG, and you find, it's awesome. And here now I'm just adding some, effects like 2D planes with some fog images. And then finally start, this is Redshift down here. We just, start to see, create some rim lights and choose some HDRs to see which one works best, and try to add some lights wherever I see it's a bit dark in some areas in the fog here. And I still don't do the motion blur on Redshift because, it takes a lot of processing power. It just takes longer to render, so there's really no point. And the one in After Effects, I think still works great and stuff. So yeah, that's how I do it. Then I'll render all these Z depth classes for depth of field, and finally just comp it here in After Effects.
Awesome, man.
That. But this was before I learned Unreal.
I was going to say, this is a nice transition into, you've recreated this in Unreal Engine, haven't you? This army guys.
Right.
How was that transitioning for Previs, going from the Maya workflow into an Unreal real-time workflow. How did you find it?
It was a freaking nightmare, man. And I know a lot of people, say, oh, Unreal is so easy to learn and all that stuff. But, for me, at least, it was kind of hard to get my head around. I kind of have my head wrapped around this whole other, video game style of pipeline, right? Because you have to concentrate a lot about optimizing your stuff, because you want the game to run as smooth as possible, like 60 frames or even higher than that. So the architecture, the way Unreal is built, is it's always trying to optimize everything from the materials to the objects. Even when you import all these objects, like high resolution objects, which Unreal can handle pretty well, but in order to save some memory, it will automatically create like 3 different versions of it. It will create like a lower version and a lower version. So if the object is farther away from the camera, then it'll automatically transition to this lower version of the object, which is pretty cool, but you kind of have to learn how to do all that, how to tweak these attributes. And for the materials, how to because it's a bit different than what you would do in Maya. It's a different material architecture.
It's a whole different approach and workflow, isn't it? And just a big learning curve. What do you think about the future of Previs in terms of like technological advancements like Unreal Engine? Do you think it's going to be the new Previs tool, or are people still going to be using things like Maya and Blender and stuff? Yeah,
I mean, the way I see it right now, at least where the trend is going, it's going to be very Unreal intensive. Like you said, all these, I think every visual effects studio, every Previs studio are implementing this Unreal thing into their pipeline in some way or another. But for like, let's say, virtual production, I think it works great, because you can, especially for projects that are almost fully CG, like the Lion King or Avatar or Jungle Book, something that doesn't require a lot of live action footage, because you can create your whole movie inside this little volume. You'll have asset people, just creating very, very cool, very realistic looking environments in Unreal. And then the director will just jump in there and with his or her virtual reality glasses and start scouting for where to block the scenes, where it's a cool camera angle and all that stuff. And so, yeah, for virtual production, I mean, it works great. I don't think you can be as I don't think Maya will be able to handle all that stuff that well. But, also other studios are, just using Unreal just for the main purpose of just rendering, kind of like what I'm doing here. Just keeping their same pipeline, building the assets, whatever they want, and animating everything in Maya. And then once they're happy with that, then just export all that into Unreal and just go from there. But I think, personally, the way I see it is, as Unreal keeps developing these tools, and also as the studios keep, creating these tools to work a bit more flawlessly with Maya, and then it'll speed up the process. There's less trial and error and you won't waste time between going from Maya into Unreal. It'll be just quickly.
Here's one. Do you think that because the directors having that opportunity for virtual production and doing the camera stuff, it allows them to sort of get their hands on Previs and try out stuff, which is I think it's a very powerful tool for them.
It's gonna kind of sucks for us, like Previs artists, I guess, because we're gonna become full-time animators now, because somebody's gonna be building the environment, and we're just gonna be animating characters that will look good from every angle, so that when the director comes in, he's gonna have all the fun, creating his shots, the whole sequence, while we Previs artists are just standing in the corner, just watching him or her, have all the fun, So that's because that's what I enjoy the most about Previs, just creating cameras, animated cameras. But yeah, that's where the trend is going right now. So, have
you got the Unreal scene that we can just look at real quick?
Yeah, I have it open. Let me just run through this one real quick to show you more or less. I think it's best if I just show you real quick the process. So here I'm just showing, the regular Maya scene file that you just saw. And here I'm, exporting all those characters as geocache, and then all the environment, but everything comes in, grayscale because it's a different texture system. So once I have all that, I go through the Quixel Megascans library, try to choose what foliage, what objects I want to use. Then here I'll create a material, and I'll apply something to the material which will make the geometry bend or offset and stuff like that to make it look like it's sort of flowing with the wind. You will do this especially for foliage and stuff. So the material is actually distorting the geometry, so to speak. And here now I'm using the foliage system, which is just to add, trees and all that stuff very quickly. You just choose which ones you want in your brush and just start painting with it. And here, like I was doing in Redshift, was just placing the lights, and then here I'm just adding all the fog, the lights, and some particle stuff, and that's pretty much how I did it. And I think that's the original Redshift stuff. And I think it kind of looks better with Unreal. I don't know. Some stuff looks a bit more realistic, like the rocks and all that stuff. The characters not as much because I didn't spend a lot of time, doing the textures for those guys. But I think everything else looks, a bit better. And Unreal has a bunch of tutorials in their website, where they talk about how to bake lighting, how to do materials, how to do realistic materials, how to do very photorealistic cars, with the reflection and all that. So, and they're very well produced. So that's where I learned most of the Unreal stuff, watching those videos.
If you was to give it any advice for somebody that wants to get into the Previs world, are there any sort of key bits of advice that you'd give to somebody?
Yeah, let's say, because it gets divided into if you want to be a Previs shot creator or you want to be an asset builder, Previs asset builder. You want to be a Previs shot creator, I guess just focus on animating, be able to animate quickly, like we were talking about, just learn shortcuts and how to convey the idea as soon as possible. And also learn a lot about cinematography, camera terminology or language, composition, learn about photography. And if you want to be an asset guy, then just try to learn the pipeline for video games, how they're always trying to make their characters as low res as possible, but emphasize and get all the detail from textures, like normal maps. So it'll be great if you know how to learn ZBrush and Substance Painter. Those are amazing programs that a lot of video game houses use. And I think a lot of previous artists are starting to implement because of the Unreal stuff, because they all transition very well. But yeah.
Awesome. Have you experimented in Blender at all for any sort of project or Previs?
I would love to, and I think the only reason why, because I've seen a bunch of people do sort of these animations that look like that are rendered in the style of storyboards. I don't know if you've seen those.
The grease pencil.
Black and white.
Yeah, man.
What's that?
It's grease pencil, so they can use 2D.
Well, that's what it's called.
The tool's called grease pencil, yeah, but it's very powerful stuff, yeah.
But yeah, and I think Blender is free, right?
Free, yeah. Very powerful.
Totally free, yeah. Yeah, I've seen some work that these people make in Blender, and it looks very realistic. The way they render their stuff from there. It's like, wow, you can do this in a free software.
Yeah. I just think if there's anything else, I just want to say thanks for your time, Luis. I know we've never actually spoke before, but briefly on social media and stuff. So I just want to say thanks for your time.
Oh, no problem. It was a pleasure, man. It was really nice talking to you.
Hope you enjoyed the interview with Luis. So next time we'll be speaking with James Vines. He's a concept artist for EA Games. We talk about one of his personal projects that got featured in last month's issue of Imagine FX. We're talking Blender, we're talking grease pencil. So if you're a fan of those two things, then be sure to check out the next video. Or if you're just a fan of animation, VFX, CGI, you will enjoy it. So yeah, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.